Okay, I just wanted to announce there's been some updates to the channel tools, version 8 now. Not much has changed, but did add a couple things. So for those of you who aren't familiar, it's just an easy way to deal with your channels. If I have some objects here, control over here, you can add it like a name to the control, like, whatever you want to say. If you hit enter, it'll just put it in as a float, 0 to 1. I'm just trying to think of names here real quick. Super ball. All right, whatever. And you could even, if you want, you can add dividers, right? What's kind of cool is you can quickly move. Oops, sorry, I haven't turned that on yet. So you can quickly move the channels around. If they're connected, it'll maintain the connections, so you don't have to worry about losing connections. If you do what I like to do, which is to actually add the channels under R&D here, you have add channel buttons, and that'll just add those same buttons to these buttons here to your channel box, so you have easy access to them. You also have quick ways to delete keys, mute, unmute, key pre-keyed, which is one of my favorites, which is only keys channels have already been keyed. I have that set to control. So if you, and then shift actually, sorry, key selected is shift. So I know it seems kind of like overkill because you have all different ways to do that already, but you can just grab this and say, you know what, control key, and it'll just key those guys. So I don't have to select them or anything like that. It'll just do it. I could make it default because the default is to key, which is, you can just hit S. You don't really need that. So if people want, I can make the default to key pre-keyed. I don't know. And then you have this one next to it, which is set default values, which, this will set your default values. This will set the default values defaults. So it only works on like, channels you've added. But if I select all these guys and I right click here and say set default values, now if I take this control and I go to reset channels, it'll reset those values. Oops, I need to change them to make that more interesting. Let's try it again. Yeah, so it sets it to those values, which is what this button does by default as well. Translate, rotate, scale, visibility, they're always going to have their default values as 0001111. After that, you have lock and, you can, whoops. This will, lock and hide and all sorts of other stuff. You can watch the other videos. I kind of wanted to get to some of the newer stuff to see what people thought. Anyway, you know what, I'm going to delete that. And I'll bring it back in. Cool. So probably the biggest change I have right now is if you go under insert, I have the multi-channel in. So this is something I just rewrote from Mel into Python to make it a little bit more functional. And basically what you can do is just load up a bunch of objects, and let's say, let's reset that. So we'll go like say Z value. So I can select anything here. So I'll say translate Y, and I'll say translate Z and connect. And now all their, did I connect it? Translate Z, oh, translate Y, sorry. Going to move it. So yeah, so you can see how it's connected like that. It also has some specialized connections. So let's say I like where the Y is of all these guys, and I want to use Y from here. I can select the Y. Let me add these instead, and I can have some special connections. I can do one that I kind of like, which is where is it? Add with offset. Connect with offset, the very top one. So what that'll actually do is just keep the value that was in there of the translates of whatever channels you have selected, and that way you don't lose. What's it? Translate. Well, yeah, you don't lose what those values were. And if you want, you can actually always go down there and select that connection and then change it to something else if you want. I also have connect with reverse and multiply -1, which is one I use a lot. Multiply with offset, and multiply just the multiplier in general, which just puts a multiplier between them. You can also do, let's just break all these channels real quick. Actually, will this work? Oh, I forgot to put break in there. I will be putting break in there soon. Okay, so anyway, let's break these guys. Again, let's use translate Y, and we'll do scale. Let's load them all in. I don't know, I'm trying to think of something to show. And I can do connect with multiplier, right? So they've actually now all been multiplied by 0, but that's all in there. But you could go into those values now and you know what, just give them each a little bit of extra value. So this will actually go wider. I go into this one and add just a little bit. It'll go, you know, a little bit less. So there's just quick ways to add those channels. You know, if you look at your, you know, this is the kind of connection that it's going to make for you. So you don't have to go in there and like make all this by hand. So this was in there before, but if you right click on the default button and you go down, mark your menu down, you get channel window. And what I want to show is something else that's kind of cool about the multi-connect. If I go in here and just make a bunch of objects, oops, let's try it again, cube. There we go. There we go. And if I select these in order, jeez, okay. And if I select the 2 channels, and there's a special connection for list A to list B. Now this isn't very common, but every once in a while you want to do something like that. And now I actually have each one of these is connected to each one. I may down the line, you know, add A to B with reverse, A to B with multiply, something like that. But often if it's more complicated than that, I'll just script it anyway. You can select the objects in here, or you can select them individually. Same thing over here. You can also clear, if you have, this is just for me, but I use everything for Viz. You can add channels, which will open this button up. If you're doing something like with control curves, so we have set control here, and these are our controls that we're working with. Why is smart translate not, or smart locate not working right? There we go. Often for something like this, you know, I want to, let's say it's a control name, controls, right, whatever. As a Boolean, I'll add that in there and go to controls. And these guys, I don't want to connect to the visibility of the control. I want to connect to the shape node. So I can actually go down here and say select shapes, load those in, and right now you see that I don't have anything. If I just right click here, I have options for which channels I want to show. So visible is the default. In this case, there is no visible. Oh, I have nothing loaded, so let's try it again. Select shapes, load them. There we go. Keyable, connectable, which there's going to be a lot of things. Connected, which is currently nothing. But if I go down and I go TRSV, it'll just force translate, rotate, scale, and visibility, even if they're not showing. So let's take these and like grab a couple things and hide them, right? And if I load these in by default with visible, I'm only going to get the ones that are visible in the channel box. If I just go TRSRV, I'm going to get all of them. And in this case, what I want to do is get those shape nodes, load them in TSRV. So now I can go to Controls, Visibility, and click that. And now, as I turn that off and on, I'm going to just do the controls. So the reason I'll do something like that is if I have like, you know, joints in here that are parented. Let's do this again. This is not how you rig. Just throwing this together so you can see what I mean. Oops, missed it. You would never do this, but actually then by that way I can just go in here and say hide the controls, the joints don't go away. So if you have a hierarchy, you're not going to lose what's under your hierarchy, like an FK chain or something like that. You are not going to hide the fingers by mistake or something. And if you're rigging, you're not going to lose those things. And then as always, you can always colorize these things with my other tool, which I'm sure some of you guys have already used. Maybe give it a ramp, which is always fun. And I think that's about it. Oh, the other things I added, this one is still sort of a, I use it all the time as another script, but just in case, just be wary. Under channel settings, I have parent freeze, and what that will actually do is just throw a group on top of your current object to freeze it in position. And then I also, above that, have freeze visible adders. And what I do with that one is, like, let's say I don't have any scale visibilities. Just hide it. But I do have translate and rotate. If I do that and I say freeze visible lasers, it's only going to freeze the translate and the rotate and leave the scale alone. The reason I have that is because if I have a whole bunch of objects and I just want to freeze the visible channels, I will just run that on all of them and it'll only freeze the things that are visible and leave everything else alone. I think that's going to be about it. Oh, and then the last thing is I added some buttons here that are just quick inserts. That's the same thing from the insert menu, but they're just here. And there's ones that I use all the time. So there's the reverse, the add, insert mult, insert what I call -1. So what that is I have two objects, and let's do like translate Z between them. Boy, sometimes when you try and do this stuff. And then I select that and I say -1. So now they're actually reversed of each other. And I use that all the time. And with that in mind, I'll often do this, which is, you have two objects that are parent constrained, right, between the two. Did it not take? It did not take. There we go. Boom, boom. But I want to put a reverse between these two channels. So what I'll do is I'll select that parent constraint. Oh, I got an arrow down one. There we go. Select the nerve circle again, the other one, and do this button, which is the insert reverse between, or I call it negate. And so now actually when I run those channels, you'll see that it reverses each other from each other, which is nice because then if you have like some sort of like a swap button or something like that in there, let's just do that, swap, and I want to connect that to my what's it called, nerve circle. There we go. And it is, you can type that in. Great. So now I have a little swapper here. So I'll bring this over here and bring this over here. And now when I run my swapper, it's going to go back and forth between the two of them. Oh, and a couple things I also wanted to point out was that when you add those channel buttons, if you don't do it through your user setup.mel or .py, it does kick out this line here, and pay no attention to that error. That's something from a different script I have. But you do get this mel chunk, whatever, here that you can use if you want to delete those things. I have it just for R&D in case I want to get in there and get rid of those things. But yeah, you can have that in there. And if you go to your if you want to have it automatically open up in your on start of Maya, you can just go here and just do an Python import SM channel tools, and then SM channel tools add to channel box, and that'll add to the channel box. Incidentally, as those of you who are savvy, if you do run, if you do run the autocomplete, you'll see that there's a whole lot of things in here already. UI is the default that you're going to run. And somebody was asking me about how to set it up for set key or keeper key. Yeah. So if you wanted to make a hotkey in your hotkeys, you can use the keeper key like that, and that'll just key you can set that to Control S or whatever the hell you want to save it to do automatic keying of those objects. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna make a couple more updates and then put this up there. And if any questions, recommendations, or whatever, let me know. And I hope you like it. Thanks.